Hey folks, thank you so much for joining the Hasura community call. This is the 18th edition, and if this is your first time joining the Hasura community call, hi, I'm Vish. The Hasura community call is a place where every month our team comes and hangs out with the community, and our engineering and product teams get to showcase the features that are upcoming, or maybe they've recently launched, or work in progress features. We also have a really cool agenda this month. We usually start off with Tanmai's Hasura update, which is like a customary update where Tanmay talks about product updates and gives us all a brief look into the roadmap. This month, we have 4 demos that we'll be presenting for features that our team has worked on. So I'm really excited about that. First off, we have KP Aravind. KP will be talking about and taking us through some of the enhancements that we've been working on adding to the Hasura CLI. KP will talk about a bit more about which enhancements these are and what they mean for our users. Followed by preview apps by Rishi. So Rishi will be showcasing an upcoming feature that would enable users to spin up preview apps associated with their GitHub PRs using our APIs in their pre-production environments. So yeah, let's see what next we have. Solomon and David couldn't be here today because of time zones and their other commitments, but they've put together some awesome demos for all of us. So Solomon has put together a demo on webhook request transformers, which is a feature that the team has recently been working on. Hasura integrates with external HTTP APIs via a variety of features, for example, actions, event triggers, schedule triggers, etc. And the requests that are generated within Hasura are not very much in line with the requests that these external APIs expect. So this feature helps the users kind of transform the request to to match the external API. So that's something that Solomon will be talking about in his demo. And David will be showing us the source type customizations. Currently, a source's name is not used in the GraphQL types and root fields that we generate. And what this does is if 2 sources have the same table names, we cannot currently track them because of type and field conflicts. And this feature that they will be talking about, it allows customizations of fields and types for a source. So yeah, that's about the agenda today. And before we jump right into it, every month we also invite someone from the community to come showcase something cool that they're proud about and are working on for that is useful for the Hasura community, or maybe they've built it using Hasura. And this month we have Daniel with us, who will be talking about a project that they've built called Next Relay Bridge. And it helps us integrate Next.js, Hasura, and Relay for a better developer experience. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Tanmai, who will be giving us the Hasura update. Over to you, Tanmai.
Thank you, Vish. All right, folks, great to see you again and hope everybody is doing well. All right, folks, just a super quick update before we jump into the exciting demos for the day. So first, we've released 2.2.1 beta. So do check that out. It's available on the open source. It's available as the Hasura open source image that you can start using and trying out. It covers a bunch of really great enhancements. I've just highlighted a few here. On the action side of things, your actions can now kind of return larger blobs of JSON data and doesn't have to be kind of strictly according to the payload that Hasura expects. Also, adding the ability to kind of send the GraphQL request query itself in the payload so that you can kind of do anything advanced that you need to do in the processing of an action. And then, of course, supporting extensions as well in the error responses so that that can also be propagated into the API. We had a long-standing request on optimizing SQL query generation that had nested limits, and that's landed as well. And some minor enhancements on the Postgres side to support, better comments with user trackable functions. So that will also show up in the GraphQL API and the tracking functions that return a single row. You'll also see the remote schema customization work that we've been talking about, which is now available on the console. And we've started kind of working a little bit on the console performance enhancements for large databases or large database schemas. And so, we had a minor enhancement go out that should make navigation a lot smoother. And we'll have a bunch more that will start to go out over the next few weeks as well. So that's on the 2.1 beta. Do check out the releases page for more information around, kind of what's available, what's enhanced, and what bugs have been fixed. What has been merged as a big part of 2.1 as a big part of 2.1 beta is X to Postgres joins. That's Postgres to Postgres joins, SQL Server, BigQuery to Postgres joins. And so that's been merged. So you should be able to start trying that out. Console support will come soon. And then you can start playing around with it in the console as well. There's a bunch of enhancements also to go out, but the core functionality is available that you should be able to start using. We'll be bringing this to other databases over the next few days and weeks as well. Remote schema to Postgres joins, which is something we've all been waiting for desperately. This work is finally nearing completion, and you should be able to start testing it out in the next few days. So we're expecting a release, a preview release on Monday. So then you can start using that and then testing with it. Do subscribe to this issue from a while ago and hit subscribe there, so that as soon as we have the PR open, we should be able to start using it for metadata initially and then with console support. Cool. The other last piece is updates on SQL Server. So Abby yesterday had put together a great board that we'll be making public soon that talks about our support for SQL Server features and how they're kind of moving towards the main trunk of the code base. And so we'll be making this public soon as well. But this kind of tracks all of the detailed features that you'll be able to see on a detailed breakdown of the capabilities on SQL Server that are coming up. So we'll be sharing this publicly soon across not just for SQL Server, but for other databases as well. We've had some requests also on how we'll manage how we kind of talk about different database features and compatibility across databases. And so we'll be kind of deep linking this with the docs and stuff like that, so that everybody can kind of take a look at where we are with respect to different capabilities on different databases. So that's also something that we'll share soon. But that is the quick update from my side, and I'm excited to kind of check out the demos that we have lined up.
Thank you so much, Tanmai, for the update. All of that looks great, and I'm really looking forward to all the other updates as well. So without further ado, calling upon KP.
So what we have on the CLI today is a bunch of usability updates that we have been working on. One important thing that I'm pretty proud of is a new command called Hasura deploy, and I'm proud of it because it was a community contribution, so it's pretty awesome. And then we have some improvements on the Hasura init command, which improves the experience a bit, and also a feature on the squash command that we have, which allows you to merge and break up your migrations into logical groups, and also some UI component improvement on the mandate command, and also a different way in which you can manage your metadata. So that's mostly it, and we will straight away dive into a demo. So here, what we have is a Hasura console, which I've started locally on my local machine, and I have already added some tables, tracked them, and things like that. And one, we can think of a logical next step to it as bringing this particular project onto the cloud, onto my consumers, so that they can consume my API, right? So one way to do that is to move the state of this particular GraphQL engineering instance into a CLI project. So how I can do that is create a new project, also specify which endpoint from which I want to initialize that particular project. So in our case, it is localhost 11.080. And what I'm going to do is initialize a project from that particular endpoint. And what it'll ask is, what directory you want to name it as. I will say the default Hasura, and also it'll ask. So this is the new thing that we have added. It will also ask if you want to initialize this project with the metadata and migrations from that particular instance. So I'll say yes, please do. Then what it'll do is it'll do the stuff it is meant to do. It'll create the migrations, it'll create the metadata, and it'll have a project directory called Hasura. And the next step is to move this particular state onto my cloud instance, right? So what I have here is a cloud project which I've already created, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take note of my endpoint for that particular project, and what I'm going to do is Hasura deploy, and I would say deploy to this particular endpoint, which is see, just cross-checking if the endpoint is correct. I think so. So let's deploy. So requires a good internet connection and the internet on your side, which I think is not on my side today, probably. But we see that the operations now succeeded, even though it took a while. So what we have here is we successfully deployed our project from my local machine, which was on my local machine, onto a cloud instance. We can cross-check that by launching a console. So this is my console for that particular project. I will quickly refresh. And we can see that we have our tables and our API ready. So that's the first two things that we wanted to see. One is the Hasura deploy command, and one is the Hasura init command with initializing the metadata and migrations as well when you do that operation. So now what can happen? So now my project can grow. For instance, I will have a lot of migrations after a while because I've been adding a lot of features to my app. So for example, let's say I have a bunch of migrations, and one thing that can happen, or one thing that we can think of, is once we have these many migrations, we might want to group it into logical units. For example, let's say I have a bunch of migrations like from 739 to 045, which belongs to a single feature. Let's say it was my big feature, and we might want to group it together or squash it together for the sanity of managing these many migrations, and also to understand the state of the app a bit better. So this was not possible earlier. So even though we had the squash command, what it allowed to do was squash from a particular version to the last version. So that is if you wanted to squash from, let's say, 793, you could only squash from 793 to the last version, not anything in between. So what we can now do is, if I wanted to squash some migrations from 739 to, let's say, 903, I can do that. So it's like this, the same old squash command. You can specify the from 903, let's say, and to let's say 154, and that's it. We have now squashed these many migrations into one, and the old migrations are now present or available in this particular directory, but I'm not going to need them anymore, so I'm going to delete them permanently. And if I now see my status again, I can see that those migrations were squashed into one, and it is here. And now let's say I wanted to apply my migrations, I can do so, and you'll notice a new progress bar here, which allows you to get sense of where your process is at, rather than staring at a spinner that we have had earlier. I think that it will be useful for a lot of people. So that's with the squash command. And also one thing that we have left is, for example, some users prefer to handle their metadata as simple JSON or YAML files rather than the metadata directory that Hasura CLI creates and manages the metadata in by default. So this is also possible now. What we can do is very simple. Just replace a metadata directory key in the config.yaml file to metadata file and specify whatever JSON or YAML path that you want to provide. So after we do that, all the metadata subcommands will respect that particular configuration. For example, if I do a Hasura metadata export, what it will do is it will export the metadata to the JSON file that we specified. The same goes with a YAML file. So if you want, you can provide a YAML file instead of the JSON file. That's also supported. And that's pretty much it on the CLI side. And on the availability of these features, except the Hasura init stuff that we talked about, everything else is available in the first beta of 2.1. And please do try it out. And if you have any suggestions, do let me know in the chat or on GitHub discussions or issues. That's all from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that amazing demo, KP. All of that looks really good. A lot of our users, in the conversations that we have with them, they associate developer experience mainly with CLI. And it's really nice to be bringing these improvements to the Hasura CLI. And hopefully the users find it really helpful. Moving forward with, oh, by the way, if you have any questions for KP will be in the hanging around in the chat. So feel free to ask them in the chat. And next up, we have Rishi to showcase the preview apps. And Rishi will also be talking about how you can integrate them in your workflows.
Okay, hey. And by the way, KP's demo was sick. The Hasura deploy command, I'm a big fan. I will be talking about the preview apps feature on Hasura Cloud. This is slightly a sneak peek into the feature because this is not live yet. As you see, I will be doing the demo from deploy preview of our docs that we have on our mono repo. This, by the way, this will be out next week, so it is it'll be available very soon. So we have, since we launched the GitHub integration, we have had a lot of requests from users about asking for preview deployments on their pull requests, and which is why we've been working very hard for the past couple of weeks on this feature, and we are very excited to show what we have built. So that's the demo. That's what the demo is going to be. So basically, Hasura Cloud has exposed certain APIs that enable you to create preview apps from GitHub branches programmatically, right? You can use these APIs and they are self-sufficient to set up preview apps on your pull requests. But we have also come up with a GitHub action that you can instantly integrate with your GitHub workflow, and which will make your life doing CI/CD much easier, right? So this demo is going to be sort of showing you how to set up preview apps when the feature is launched. So getting right into it, firstly, I'll just take you through the docs. So all the Hasura Cloud APIs are can be contacted through a personal access token that you can create on your cloud dashboard. You can just go to the My Account section on the bottom left, and then you can just create an access token and use it to contact the Hasura Cloud APIs. So firstly, get started with creating a Hasura Cloud personal access token, and add it to the repo secrets of the GitHub repo that has a valid Hasura project. So I have an article author GitHub repo here, which has a Hasura directory with a bunch of metadata and migration, the simple article author schema. if you want to see, this is where you add secrets. If you see, I have already added a Hasura Cloud Access token. Yeah, so you add the Hasura Cloud Access token. The next thing you do is you create a workflow in your GitHub repo. So I will do that. You can just copy paste from here to get started. First we create a .github direct. Awesome. So yeah, I'll cd into the GitHub directory. Also create a directory called workflows, and then I'll create a cloud preview apps.yaml, and I'll just copy this. Right. The name of the workflow will be preview apps. It will get triggered on pull request against the main branch. And what it does is it runs on Ubuntu latest, sure, checks out the code. Then it uses this action that we have worked on that does a lot of heavy lifting for you about creating and recreating the preview apps. So we will use this action, and it accepts a bunch of arguments. Firstly, the preview app name. You can construct this from the GitHub pull request number or the branch, whatever you want to. I'm just going to call it sample, not sample, okay, article author community call. And then the PR number will come into picture. The Hasura project directory path, which as I showed you, it is Hasura. So that will keep as Hasura. You can also start with certain environment variables, but I don't need them for now, so I won't put them here. And this by the way, I'm from India firstly, so I will keep the region to be AP South 1, and the tier, since I'm a paying Hasura customer, I'll keep it cloud tier 0. You can also keep it cloud free. That's what it defaults to. And you can also choose any AWS region of your choice that you can, the supported regions you can see in the cloud dashboard. The Hasura project directory path is the path to the Hasura project directory. That is Hasura, as we visited that before. And the next thing it accepts is the GitHub token, which will access from the secrets. GitHub makes sure to make this GitHub token available in the context of GitHub Actions by default. So all we have to do is just add this in your workflow, and the GitHub token will be available. This is needed for the Hasura Cloud APIs to access the metadata and migrations from the branch, right? And then finally, the Hasura Cloud Access token that we had added as a first step, that also we will access from the secrets. And so this is about the Hasura Cloud Preview Apps action. And I'll just add another step here, which is Hasura comment progress, which is an action built out by some of the cool folks at Hasura, which just helps you to comment on the pull request with whatever you want to comment. So in this step, I will just, sorry, the indentation was a bit messed up. So the GitHub token, as I said before, the PR number and the message. In the message, we'll just access the output variables spat out by the previous action, that is the console URL and the GraphQL endpoint. Right. Also the repo, I'm gonna change it to this. Right. So I think we are good. Let's start. Let's comment this. Add a test first. Check out to a different branch. Test. Review workflow. And let's comment. This, okay, let's create a pull request now. I'm hoping I haven't made any syntax errors. Let's see. Okay. The workflow should get picked up. If you see here, the you can see the deployment logs of the workflow that we just set up. Firstly, the project was created, and now it is trying to apply metadata and migrations. So while this goes on, I will just take you through what is happening. So we have Hasura Cloud exposes two APIs. One is create GitHub preview app and recreate GitHub preview app, and these can be triggered programmatically through the personal access token. So this action just accepts the name and certain options and just creates creates the preview app on Hasura Cloud for you from the configured Hasura directory. And for the subsequent commits, it also recreates the preview app from scratch. So this deployment of mine will also expects a database, because Hasura is almost always used with the database. So this action also covers the database side of things. So if you're using Postgres database, you can simply pass a Postgres server to this action, and then this action takes care of creating ephemeral databases and then destroying them when the pull request gets closed. So while the pull request is in progress, we will also do this. Hey, this has been created though. Yeah, so the preview app got created and commented, and the Postgres config can be added as action arguments to the action, and you simply have to pass a Postgres server connection URI, which also I have added in the secrets. Where is it? And once this connection URI is provided, and the environment variables that expect a Postgres connection URI that is provided, the action takes care of creating a temporary database in this Postgres server and passing it into this environment variable and providing it to the created preview app. So that's it about my demo. Hope you liked it, and it will be out next week, hopefully. Definitely, I'd say. And yeah, really excited to see your feedback on this.
Just kind of wanted to add to what Rishi was saying. I mean, so essentially the idea is that if you have a GitHub action, so if you have a Postgres server, you can pass in that Postgres server to the GitHub action, and then the GitHub action will kind of go in, create a database, apply the migrations, set up the metadata, and then create the Hasura instance as well. And as on all future commits on the same pull request, the project will get recreated. So the older database will get nuked, new database will get set up from scratch, and everything will be applied. That's the right workflow, right, Rishi?
Yep, exactly. And also, one thing that I did not show due to time constraints is I thought I ran out of time. So I didn't do is this action also takes care of the cleanup, that if once the pull request gets closed, it destroys the databases that it created, and it also destroys the preview apps that it created.
Got it. And this piece is optional, so that, for example, if I already have like the same database and I'm not going to if I don't want to keep recreating databases and stuff like that, I don't need to add that into my workflow. Definitely. I can just use the metadata part.
Yeah, definitely. And you can also create a Postgres server yourself in one of the previous steps and pass that on as environment variables. So this passing the Postgres servers to us is sort of optional, but it's convenient. So
got it. Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense.
That was a great demo, Rishi. This feature is going to be super helpful with previewing changes and making previewing changes very efficient for all our users, and integrating them with GitHub workflows for teams. So that was a great demo. Thank you again. If you have any questions for Rishi, I think we have some extra time, and maybe we can take like a minute or so to see if anyone has questions for Rishi in the chat. If not, then we will be moving forward with the final two demos that we have for today, actually. by Solomon and David.
Hi, my name's Solomon, and I'm on the Cloud API team at Hasura. And I'm here to demo a new feature we've been working on called Webhook Transformations. It affects actions and event triggers. And it's solving a fairly common problem we've heard from users, where the shapes of the requests that are generated through actions and event triggers don't necessarily line up with the third-party APIs that you might be calling out to in the case where you don't control those APIs. And the common solution is to have some sort of intermediate service like a cloud function or just a small node server, which is performing some kind of data transformation on the request and then passing it along to your actual API. And we wanted to eliminate that extra work on the behalf of our users. So we came up with this system where we have a templating language now that's baked into actions and event triggers, which allows you to perform arbitrary transformations on your requests when they're called out. So it's using a small JSON templating language that we implemented in-house that we call Critty. And we have plans in the future to support other templating languages such as JSONet and any other ones that you all might be interested in. We just wanted to start with something pretty small and lightweight and then extend out from there. So Critty has kind of like a Go templating syntax style to it with the double curly brackets. And basically the way it works is you include in scope the original JSON that you're transforming, and then you can construct some new arbitrary JSON with a few language primitives added in. We've got path lookups and loops, as you can see here, where you can bind the value from the array as well as its index, and some if statements with some basic predicate operations, and string interpolation. And we have a lot of ideas for how to extend this language, in addition to adding support for other templating languages in the future. And we'd love to hear from all of you about it. And it's also an open source project, so if anyone wants to take a look at it, it's on our GitHub page. Anyways, so let's take a look at an action at the request constructed by an action currently, and then I'll show you how we can do a transformation on it. So I've already created this just standard action. It's using the default sample custom types. The input is called sample input, and it uses the sample input type, and the field's called arg1. And that just contains a username as a string and a password as a string. And then the sample output from the mutation is a string called access token. So if we go over to the API Explorer, we can create one of these actions right now and run it and log it. And I'll punch in a super secret password and a username and the response body. And here we go. So this is calling out to a Node.js server that I'm running locally that just gives us back a arbitrary token. It's just a fixed value, and it logs to the console with a request body in the header so we can inspect them. So that is over here. So this first is the headers, and then here the second part is the body. And you can see it's got the content type and the encoding and some trace info. And in the body, it's got the request query, the session variables, the inputs to the mutation, and the name of the action. And so we want to be able to do our transformations in the GraphQL engine to this request body and potentially to other parts of the request so that we don't need to do it through a third-party service. And we can do that with this new feature. So over here, this is just a an API call on the metadata API. I'm not demoing the user interface for this. It's got a really great interface, but that's going to be demoed separately by our front-end team. And this is just the standard create action, the create action call on the metadata API with an additional field here called request transform. And so inside the request transform envelope, you can put new headers to add, headers to remove, a new URL, specific new query parameters, and a body. And you can do these template transformations on all of those fields. You can also change the method. And so the way this works is that in scope, we've got the body under the binder $body, the headers under $request headers, and the URL as $URL. And then you can just create these pretty templates inlined here. You have to escape them properly, but you don't have to worry about that when you're using the actual UI on the and then so this transformation will be called whenever an action is performed. So this particular transformation is going to add a header called foo with the value bar, and it's going to replace the entire body with this new object with one key called author, and the value of that key will be the username from arg1 in the original request. So I've created the new action now, and we can go back over to the console and refresh the page. And add a new mutation. Here it is. It's called transformed action. And I'll put in my same super secret password and my username. We're going to get back the same fixed response because that's static. This endpoint is just going to be used for logging purposes. And so there's our response. And if we come over here, now up above is the old request, and here below is the new request. You can see that now there's a new header, foobar, and the body has been transformed into this object. And so this is really cool because now you don't need to have these third-party services for doing these data transformations. You can just do them all internally. And you can perform these transformations on synchronous and asynchronous actions as well as event triggers. And we've got plans in the works to add this onto RESTified HTTP endpoints. And we also are going to do the same thing with response bodies that are coming back from your third-party APIs. So lots to look forward to related to webhook transformations in the near future. I think this is going to really be an exciting feature for a lot of you. And we would love to hear back and find out in what ways you'd like us to extend the feature and, what works and what doesn't work. So that's the end of the demo. Thanks very much, and have a great day.
All right, so that was the feature that Solomon demoed, the webhook transformations feature. I personally think it's a really cool feature because, as Solomon mentioned, that now you don't need any third-party APIs or a node server running particularly for these kind of request transformations that you had to do earlier. You can handle it internally from Hasura using the feature. And also it's really cool to see the team work on a templating language that they've written inspired from Go's templating language. And also really looking forward to the enhancements that Solomon mentioned will be coming up later on. So yeah, that was about webhook request transformations. Moving on to David's demo on source type customizations.
Hi, my name's David. I'm a backend developer at Hasura. Today I'm going to be talking about a new feature we're currently developing called source customization. Last month we showed you remote schema customization, which was released recently. Source customization is similar, but for database sources rather than remote schemas. The main purpose is to avoid name conflicts between automatically generated fields and types in different source databases. I'll start by showing you a demo here. So here we've got a Postgres source called PG1, which has a single table called author. in there. If we go to the API, we'll see from that table name, Hasura has generated a number of root field names. And if I run a query with a type name field, we can see it's also generated some types based on that table name. Now, what if we had a second database source that also had a table called author? How would we deal with the conflicts between the field names and type names? Well, at the moment, the way to do that is to use a custom name for one of the tables. So if you give the table a custom name here, then all of the type and field names from that table will use that custom name, and then you can avoid the conflicts. But it would be nice if we could do that at the source level. So we just have one configuration for a source that would allow us to apply something similar to every table and function and so on that's added for that source. So let's see how we can do that with this new feature. So I'll just remove the source here. And we add it with customizations. So we need to do this via the API at the moment. So you can see we've got the PG add source request here. There's this new customization section here. And within that, we have two other sections, root fields and type names. So root fields, we can specify a namespace. We can also specify a prefix for each field and also a suffix as well. So all of these are optional, and probably to avoid conflicts, you would just need either one of these, but we'll show both of them today. So you wouldn't necessarily need a namespace and a prefix. You could just choose one or the other. And you can also specify a separate prefix and a suffix as well if you want for type names. So we will send that request on here. Let's refresh this. Our database is back. We will track the table again, and let's go and see what's happened over here. So now, just delete that query. So instead of the author fields being at the root, we've got this new namespace field, PG1 namespace. If we open that up, the author fields are in there, and they have this PG1 field prefix applied to them. Let's try running a query. We'll put in our type name as well and see what we get. Okay, and you can see if the type name that's been generated here has a PG1 type prefix added to it. So yes, this is the new feature. We should be releasing it soon. So thank you for your time today.
All right, yeah. So that was David. That was the feature that David was going to talk about. It's a really nifty feature to be able to avoid type and field conflicts for tables that have same names at the source level. So that was a really cool feature. If you have any questions for Solomon and David, make sure that you catch them on Discord later, or you can also ask questions in the chat here. The rest of the team will be around. So yeah, I think we're ready for Dan's demo. So Dan, if you're ready, over to you.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Dan Cortes. I'm a front-end developer at Coinbase currently, which is kind of where I started to learn about Relay, which is, as some of you may know, a GraphQL API framework basically that does like a lot of interesting things like caching your data for you, and I just found it super easy to work with. So, and also, yeah, I'm on Twitter at Dan_Cortes_ and on GitHub at DGCA. But yeah, so I learned about Relay. I've been a huge fan of Next.js just because I feel like it does a lot out of the box that I don't want to set up myself, to be honest. And kind of like bridging using Next with Relay has been, there's things you have to do in order to get the benefits of Next, like server-side rendering, for instance. So I created this library, Next Relay Bridge, to bridge, next, and relay. So in essence, it is a library to facilitate with server-side rendering Next.js pages that rely on relay queries. So why relay? Like I mentioned, it has this smart cache. So it's essentially, it's running, there's like a relay compiler that actually looks at your code, looks at the queries that you've made, and like auto generates these files that kind of like map to the queries that you're making, and that gives you like super strong type safety. And you like if you use like VS Code or something with auto completion, you get like you know, IntelliSense. So it's just a really good developer experience. So Relay also works with the suspense API really well, so you can like very easily add like loading states and kind of just act as though your data is like always ready. And also, so been a huge fan of Next for a while. Fell in love with Relay at Coinbase, and I've been using Hasura extensively. Also, like a giant fan. So side note, super happy to be here talking to you all. And Hasura just happens to provide a really compliant API that you literally just flip a switch and suddenly that's available to you. So it was kind of like, whoa, like the you know, like backend as a service thing that I really love to use just like provides this. This stack is just like super fun to work with. Cool. So next, Relay Bridge. So how does it work? So like I mentioned, Next.js does a lot to kind of provide like server-side rendering out of the box. But in order to make a data request server-side and then like use that data to hydrate your Relay store on the client, not the most straightforward process. So essentially what Next Relay Bridge does is it, on the server, when you're rendering a page, it awaits all of the Relay data requests. And then, so Relay has this concept of a store. So then it takes the store and sends it to the client for hydration once all those requests are done. And then on the client, when that page is loaded, when it first creates the Relay environment, it uses the server's store to initialize the client-side store. And that, I mean, in essence, just lets you server-side render pages using Relay. Cool, so we can actually look at how this works with a little demo. So first, let's talk about setting it up. So one of the things that you need in order to use Relay really is just to like generate a schema. So here's the auto-generated schema that Hasura is providing. And this is just like a demo .m file, but pretend that that's my admin secret right there. And then I have my Relay endpoint, which is right here. So I have this script called fetch schema, which essentially uses get GraphQL schema, passes the Hasura admin secret header to the endpoint, and then it writes the schema to schema.graphql. And whenever I add a table in Hasura or like change a field or something like that, I just update my schema by running this fetch schema script. So yeah, this is like all auto-generated from that, and that's kind of what tells Hasura, or rather Relay, like what you know, like what all the tables are and like what their fields are and all that stuff. Cool. So then, now that we've got our schema, we actually need to use Next Relay Bridge to kind of like initialize everything. So in my Next.js app component, I have this with app bridge helper, which is created from this Relay Bridge file. And here's like where we're actually using these utilities that Next Relay Bridge provides. So Next Relay Bridge exports a function called create relay bridge. That function takes an object as its argument, which tells it how to build that server environment and how to build that client environment. These two things are like very Relay specific, so I'm not gonna get too deep into them, but essentially on the server, you just return a new Relay environment. This has to be a unique environment every time because we don't want to like, you know, have one user request some data and then have another user request data and then get the first user's data. That would be very, very bad. So the server always returns a new relay environment. The client, on the other hand, we can initialize a, just like say like let client end, and then if there is no environment, then we create a new one. But if there is an environment, we want to return the same environment every time. And the thing to note here is that this client environment gets the initial state that I talked about. So essentially, like that's what we're going to use to hydrate that store or like initialize that store with the server's data. Side note, all this code is in the repo. So I'm actually looking at the repo right now, and I've got this example. So you can just go poke around there if anything doesn't make sense, or if you want to just like, you know, get a better view of all this. Cool. So we tell create next relay bridge, how to get the server environment, how to get the client environment, amazing. And then that returns with app bridge and with page bridge. And we also have a utility called save suspense, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But cool, so now that we have with app bridge, we can use that to wrap our app component. And that is literally like, that's all you gotta do to make all this functionality available to your app. With app bridge gives a additional prop to your app, which is relay environment, which is what you pass to your relay environment provider, which is a relay thing, so that it knows like what environment to pull all this data from. Amazing. So next, let's look at a page that is using this. So this is a very simple app. It's got like users and to-dos are the only tables. And in fact, so like it's literally this. I got my data over here. Got some to-dos that our users made. And we've got our users, which is Dan and Shark. Shark is right here, PPC company, when I'm coding. And cool. So in this to-dos page, it needs to be server-side rendered. So the way that we do that is with page bridge utility, we give it a page component, which is whatever component it is that we want to render, and then get initial props needs to return any props that page needs. And one of the props that we need is the to-dos query, which we use, or rather, which we get by using this preload query function that get initial props is now makes available to you. Cool. So that gets passed here. It's awaited on the server. This query eventually makes it to our users object, which then we use relays use preloaded query to load. Amazing. Let's see it in action. So here, if I refresh, you can see that the page just kind of loads. And here I have this with SSR preview, this is a tool that one of my friends made. It's available on the Chrome Web Store, but it essentially gives you a preview of what a server-side rendered would look. So you can see here that Dan's to-dos and Shark's to-dos are server-side rendered. Awesome. So let's look at a page that's not server-side rendered. So here we have this users table, which has just the users as a table. We look at users table. So this is, not using with page bridge. It just renders users table and a users list. Users list is not using anything other than just regular relay stuff. So we're actually using use lazy load query, which so this is going to suspend, which is why we see that fallback of loading when we enter the page. And I can just refresh and show that again. Cool, so loading, and then we get the data. And then if I view SSR preview here, we see that the table is not there. So one more thing that I kind of want to talk about is this save suspense. So the way that relay works is that if the data is loading, it will suspend. And unfortunately, if we use the regular suspense from React, then if I refresh this, yep, so I think this is going to be like fixed in the future, but essentially we can't use suspend on the server, so it throws this error. So I just also made available the state suspense component, which on the server it renders a fragment with like null inside, and then on the client it actually uses suspense. So you can use suspense on the client and also like fall back to something somewhat decent on the server. Cool. So what's next? I want to add stronger type safety. I definitely leaned on any a little bit too much. So I want to just type everything. Also like improve the docs. And yeah, if you have any suggestions, I definitely encourage you to submit an issue. And that's it for my demo. Shout out to Bishop Z for opening up the first PR, Joe Batigliero for the SSR viewer extension. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn. And thanks again to the Hasura team.
Awesome. It was really nice to have you. Thank you for taking out the time to demo with us. It was really impressive to see the SSR in action, and Next.js and really are really cool technologies, but it can be like tricky to put them together and like set everything up. So it's really cool that you put together Next Relay Bridge and showed us how to integrate that with Hasura. So Dan is also on our Discord server. So if you have any questions for him, or if you have any feedback, if you'd like to contribute to the repo, the project, feel free to reach out on Twitter or Discord. Quickly wrap up with a few exciting community updates that I have to show you folks. The community team has been working on live streams every week, and we talk about things that we're excited about, technology that our engineers are excited about, and things that we'd like to hack around along with you folks. So the recent episodes included Jesse and Dennis, who built GraphQL WS, a de facto library that is aiming to be the de facto standard for how we manage subscriptions, GraphQL subscriptions. It was really cool to see Jesse team up with Dennis to show us how we can manage GraphQL subscriptions with GraphQL WS. And in case you missed it, we recently demoed GraphQL WS and released support for the library in Hasura. So make sure you check out the previous stream and try it out. The upcoming stream is going to be about Stripe and Hasura, all things Stripe and Hasura. Our very own Gavin is going to be joining Charles Watkins, who is a developer advocate at Stripe. And they're going to build no-code marketplaces with Stripe Connect and Hasura. So that's something that I'm personally super excited about, because it's a new feature that the Stripe team has worked on and they just launched it. And it would be really cool to see how that integrates with Hasura to build no-code marketplaces. So make sure you check that out. The link will be sent to you all in your email, in the follow-up email that we sent you folks. And there's an upcoming webinar that we'd love for you to join us for. It's about automated API deployments with GitHub integration on Hasura Cloud. So we also recently launched our GitHub integration on Hasura Cloud that you can use to apply any schema or metadata changes automatically with simply just a git push. So make sure you save the date, 6th October, 9 a.m. Pacific time, and register to join us to learn how to use the GitHub integration on Hasura Cloud. And last but not the least, the Enterprise GraphQL Conference is making another visit. So come explore the concept of GraphQL as a data mesh with us in this mini conference that is going to happen on October 28th. it's a free and online conference for a single day. It's a mini conference where companies like Optum, Airbnb, Uber, and Shopify have previously showcased how they're using GraphQL to solve data challenges for applications at scale. And this year, we're going to be talking about different teams actually are going to join us to talk about how they're using GraphQL as a unified data access layer for like across various domains. So make sure you join us because it's free and online, and save the date. Here is a quick look at the conference website. So yeah, make sure you register for the conference that's happening on 28th of October. And we're forever trying to improve the community call experience for all of you. So make sure if you have any feedback or if you'd like to see something new in the next call, make sure you let us know through our feedback form, hasura.info/com10. Also, if you like Dan's demo and if that is something that you'd like to do in our next community call, let us know through our community call demo form. If there's a project that you're proud of, that you'd like to showcase, or any contribution that you've made to Hasura that is useful for the Hasura community, make sure that you let us know and come share your experience with us. That's all. The next Hasura community call, actually, every Hasura community call is supposed to happen on the last Thursday of every month, 9 a.m. Pacific time. But as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna be doing the Enterprise GraphQL conference next month on the last Thursday. So we'll probably have a combined really cool Hasura community call for the month of October and November. Sometime in November. So make sure you follow us on Twitter and also keep your eyes peeled for the announcement on Discord as well. We will let you know about the new dates pretty soon. Thank you so much for joining us.